The woods were ancient. Twisted branches clawed at the sky, their gnarled fingers reaching for something they could never grasp. A perpetual mist hung heavy, shrouding the woods in an ethereal, unsettling silence. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Villagers spoke of the woods only in hushed tones, their voices laced with fear. They avoided the forest, especially as night fell, for they knew the dangers that lurked within. They called it the Whispering Woods, a place where the veil between life and death was thin. It was said that the spirits of the departed roamed freely, their whispers carried by the wind, a place haunted by the legend of Elara's curse. The air grew colder as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Shadows stretched, twisting into monstrous shapes that danced at the edge of vision. The forest seemed to come alive, its every rustle and creak a reminder of its dark history. The wind picked up, rustling through the leaves and carrying with it the murmur of voices. These voices, barely audible, seemed to tell tales of sorrow and loss. Or were they just whispers? Whispers of the past, echoing through the trees, a constant reminder of the darkness that lingered within the woods. The villagers often wondered if these whispers were the voices of the cursed souls trapped within. The villagers knew the truth. They had heard the stories passed down through generations. Stories that spoke of the forest's malevolent nature and the spirits that dwelled within. Stories of Elara, the village healer accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. Her cries of innocence fell on deaf ears, and her death marked the beginning of the forest's curse. They spoke of her dying curse, a promise of vengeance that would haunt the village for eternity. Elara's spirit, they believed, was bound to the forest, her anger and sorrow giving life to the whispers. As twilight deepened, the woods seemed to press in, a living entity fueled by an ancient pain. The trees, gnarled and twisted, seemed to lean closer, as if listening to the whispers. The Whispering Woods held its secrets close, waiting for the unwary to stumble into its grasp. Many had ventured in, but few had returned, and those who did were never the same. And within its depths, Elara's spirit waited and watched. Her presence was a constant, a reminder of the village's dark past and the curse that would never be lifted. Centuries ago, the village bustled with life. The streets were filled with the sounds of daily activities, and the air was thick with the sense of community and togetherness. Laughter echoed through the square. Children chased each other through the market, their joyous cries mingling with the chatter of merchants and villagers. The scent of baking bread filled the air, a comforting aroma that promised warmth and sustenance. Elara, a woman of wisdom and kindness, was beloved by all. Her presence was a beacon of hope and compassion in the village. Her knowledge of herbs and remedies was unmatched, and she healed the sick with a gentle touch. People came from far and wide to seek her aid, trusting in her abilities to cure their ailments. But fear, once sown, takes root quickly. Dark clouds began to gather over the village, casting long shadows over the once vibrant community. A series of misfortunes befell the village. The crops, which had once flourished, began to wither and die, leaving the villagers in a state of despair. Illness spread like wildfire, and the nights grew eerily silent as fear took hold. Whispers of dark magic began to circulate, sowing seeds of doubt and suspicion. Fearful and desperate, the villagers searched for someone to blame. Their once tight-knit community began to fracture under the weight of their fear. Their eyes fell upon Elara. The woman who had once been their savior was now seen as a harbinger of doom. Her knowledge, once revered, was twisted into something sinister. The villagers' minds, clouded by fear, could no longer see the truth. Her potions, once a source of healing, were deemed instruments of witchcraft. The very tools she used to save lives were now seen as evidence of her supposed dark powers. The whispers grew louder, fueled by fear and suspicion. The once harmonious village was now a hotbed of paranoia and distrust. Accused and condemned without a chance for defence, Ilara was dragged to the village square. The place that had once been filled with laughter and joy was now a scene of horror. Bound to a stake, flames licking at her feet, she looked upon the faces of her accusers. The people she had once helped now looked at her with cold, merciless eyes. No mercy flickered in their eyes, only fear and a chilling righteousness. They believed they were purging their village of evil, but in truth they were destroying their own humanity. With her dying breath, Ilara cursed the village. Her voice, filled with pain and betrayal, echoed through the square. Their fear, their ignorance would be their undoing. The village, once a place of light and life, was now shrouded in darkness and despair. Her spirit would forever haunt the woods, a constant reminder of their betrayal. The villagers would never forget the price of their fear, and the name Ilara would be whispered in hushed tones for generations to come. Generations had passed since Ilara's execution, yet the village remained trapped in the shadow of her curse. The once vibrant community was now cloaked in a perpetual air of unease. The laughter of children was muted, their games confined to the village square, their eyes darting nervously towards the tree line. The villagers avoided the whispering woods at all costs. Those who dared venture too close returned with tales that chilled the blood stories of disembodied whispers. Cold spots that sent shivers down the spine, and fleeting glimpses of a spectral figure gliding through the trees. Strange occurrences plagued the village. Livestock fell ill, crops withered, and accidents seemed to happen with alarming frequency. The villagers lived in a perpetual state of fear, haunted by the belief that Ilara's vengeful spirit was responsible for their misfortune. The elders spoke of breaking the curse, of appeasing Ilara's restless spirit. But fear had taken root so deeply that no one dared to venture into the woods to confront the source of their misery. And so, the village remained trapped, bound by the chains of its past, living under the oppressive weight of Ilara's curse. The old tavern was alive with the murmur of hushed conversation. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and the faint aroma of ale, creating an atmosphere that was both inviting and mysterious. Rain lashed against the windows, mirroring the tension brewing inside. The storm outside seemed to echo the storm of emotions within the tavern, as if nature itself was in tune with the night's unfolding drama. A group of friends, young and restless, huddled around a flickering candle, their faces illuminated in the warm, unsteady light. The candlelight danced on their faces, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of their own. Among them was Thomas, known for his skeptical nature and thirst for adventure. His eyes, sharp and inquisitive, scanned the room, taking in every detail as if searching for hidden truths. He listened intently as the village elder recounted the legend of Ilara, his voice barely a whisper. The elder's words wove a tapestry of fear and wonder, painting vivid images of the past that seemed to come alive in the dim light. The story, steeped in fear and superstition, did little to impress Thomas. He had heard many such tales before, each one more fantastical than the last, and he had always found them lacking in substance. He saw it for what it was, a ghost story meant to keep the villagers in line. To him, it was a tool of control, a way to maintain order through fear. "It's just a story," Thomas scoffed, his voice laced with a hint of bravado to mask his own unease. He wanted to believe his own words, to dismiss the chill that ran down his spine as mere imagination. A way to scare children and keep them out of the woods. His tone was dismissive, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. His words were met with nervous glances and a palpable silence. The tension in the room grew thicker, as if the very air was holding its breath. The other villagers, their faces etched with fear, knew better than to tempt fate. They had grown up with these stories, and the fear they instilled was deeply ingrained. But Thomas, emboldened by the skepticism that simmered within him, saw an opportunity to prove his point. He was determined to show that the legend was nothing more than a myth. He issued a challenge, a dare to venture into the heart of the Whispering Woods and uncover the truth behind the legend. His voice was steady, but his heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. His friends, caught between their fear and their loyalty to Thomas, reluctantly agreed. They exchanged uneasy glances, each one silently questioning the wisdom of their decision, and so, fueled by a potent cocktail of youthful bravado and morbid curiosity, they made a pact to face the darkness that awaited them in the woods. The pact was sealed with a solemn nod, each one steeling themselves for the journey ahead. The Whispering Woods, with its ancient trees and eerie silence, loomed large in their minds, a place where legends were born and fears were realized. As they prepared to leave the safety of the tavern, the storm outside seemed to intensify, as if warning them of the dangers that lay ahead. But Thomas, driven by his need to uncover the truth, led the way. His friends following close behind, their hearts pounding with a mix of dread and anticipation.